Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Roz and here we talk about all of our favorite fandoms, especially about Harry Potter. If you go to my channel and you check out any of my videos, you'll see that a lot of them have to do with Harry Potter. I also love bringing you guys along with me on my travels, and pretty soon we're going to be going to Japan. So definitely make sure to check out my other videos and subscribe to my channel for a lot more nerdy fun and so you can join the fam. But let's get on into this one because there is a lot. So as you can tell from the title, this is going to be my ranty, Fantastic Beasts, the Crimes of Grindelwald, feedback, opinions, all my rambles and thoughts video. There is a lot. So when I saw this movie a couple days ago, I took some notes as soon as I got home. Because basically, I sat down, started the movie, really enjoyed the intro, but doubts, thoughts, opinions, emotions started creeping through as the movie went on. And by the end, I was left in an emotional void and just a question mark was what I was left as. So if you're interested in knowing why I was left in that condition, then stay tuned for my opinions on the Crimes of Grindelwald. You've decided to stay tuned. Thank you. Now, keep in mind, I will be talking about the film, so that does mean spoilers ahead. I will be talking about lots of the little things that happen throughout the film, including some of the major reveals, so be sure to watch the movie yourself, then come on back. I also do want to say, please, let's have a conversation in the comment section about the movie. Let me know what you think about my thoughts and all of that. But let's keep it kind and, good-hearted. This is a fandom we all love and cherish, but there's no need to be mean to each other down in the comment section. Don't take anything I say too personally. I am the kind of fan that I love listening to other people's opinions and taking it in, listening to them, having an honest, proper, civilized conversation about the way we feel about these books and films and all of that. But let's be mindful of that. So taking all of that to heart, and now we're gonna get into the nitty-gritty because it was a nitty-gritty kind of film. I think that if, any of the reviews and fan feedback we've been seeing so far, it really reflects that this is a divisive movie. This is the kind of movie that some fans walked in and really felt passionate about coming out, and other fans, and I would probably stick myself in that group, feel a lot of questions, feel a lot of doubts walking out of it. And the notes that I took really speak to that reasoning of why I feel that way. So I've kind of tried my best to divide my notes. So I made my original gibberish notes and then I kind of put them into groupings, and I want to get into those. So my first grouping, my first area that I want to talk about is fan servicing. So in any of these kinds of films, we're always going to have fan servicing. We're going to have things that, pull on our heartstrings because it is a beloved fan franchise. The makers of all of this, they know that they're going to have core people like us going in that know all of the little nods and hints and Easter eggs that they throw in. That's all fine, and we've come to expect that, particularly in genre movie making. But I feel where this movie fails us as fans is that it does this, but takes us nowhere with it. So, for example, Professor McGonagall. So by now, hopefully all of you, again, like I warned before, spoilers, but most of you already either seen the movie or you've read online. Professor McGonagall, Minerva McGonagall, as we know her from the Harry Potter films, that character is in this film. And, some people are out there saying, oh, maybe it's not Minerva, maybe it's another McGonagall, her mom, somebody else, but IMDb lists her as Minerva McGonagall. The problem with that, though, is that she was not born yet at the time that this film takes place. And fan servicing, when it retcons or rewrites the histories, doesn't serve the purpose of fan servicing. Fan servicing is to say, hey, you in the audience who knows and loves these characters, this world, we recognize you by throwing this information that might not stick with other people watching the film. They might just see it as another random character, but you'll recognize this individual. Well, that doesn't work if what you're throwing my way is somebody that shouldn't even be alive. So that is one example, but there are more, unfortunately, in this film. So fan servicing continues with Nagini. Now, we had this spoiled for us because it was revealed in one of the trailers that Nagini would be in this film. So again, we're like, wow, okay, name dropping Nagini, you know, Voldemort's pet snake. We want to know that now she was a woman. How did she become this way? We see her in this film. We know that she can shift into the snake form. She has this blood curse that allows her to do this. She's maledictus. And that is as far as her story arc goes. She is basically just alongside Credence, and we assume there's some sort of relationship. Unclear if it's truly romantic or what's going on, but that's all we get from Nagini. So it's disappointing that we get this big reveal with no further development of that character. Maybe in the future films, I'm hoping that for both McGonagall and Nagini, it's something that we're going to still have to discover in future films. But it doesn't stop there. Again, Nicholas Flamel, another huge name that's dropped, but also has no character development, has no real purpose. He does do certain things to move the plot around, but no core purpose for being in this film. It could have been any nameless character that could have been there. It didn't have to be Nicholas Flamel, but it felt like fan service to say, hey, yeah, it's Nicholas Flamel here, and sure, he's part of the story, but not in this film is he going to do anything major that specifically requires it to be Nicholas Flamel. So those are just 3 examples, and there are countless other things throughout this film that really just speak to fan servicing, to giving little nods to us hardcore fans, but not really giving us the emotional weight behind it by allowing these characters room to breathe. And in a similar vein as fan servicing, we also have a lot of retconning. So while fan servicing is like the creators of this film throwing things our way that they know we will love and that they know that we will recognize, retconning is where something that you expect is completely subverted or used in a different way. So the original intention, the history, the lore behind this thing is completely changed or altered in some sort of way. Maybe not totally, but at least in a certain aspect of it is changed. McGonagall is somewhat of an example of this because potentially her backstory when she was born, all of that could be retconned at this point. We don't have clear answers on that. You know, was she now born in a different year? That is to be discovered. But the 2 elements that I want to talk about for retconning that really got me in a bit of a tizzy were the Mirror of Erised and photos versus portraits. So the Mirror of Erised, if we all go back to our Harry Potter 101, the Mirror of Erised is an incredible artifact, a piece of magic that I loved the way it was introduced in Harry Potter. It is a mirror that is magical because it shows you not just your reflection, but really it shows you your heart's true desire. In the trailers, we were led to believe that the mirror was showing Dumbledore looking upon Grindelwald because there was this backstory that Grindelwald and Dumbledore had a love, a connection between them when they were younger. This obviously with the divide between them, with the fight that ultimately ended in Ariana's death, has now become a convoluted, complicated relationship. But the idea that, you know, Dumbledore is still seeing Grindelwald in the mirror means that perhaps he still longs for him, he still loves him to some extent, and maybe hopes that he could change or redeem Grindelwald, bring him back to good, and save him somehow out of the love that he feels for him. At least that's how I felt watching the trailer. But now watching the film, we got something completely different. So Dumbledore is looking in the mirror, and instead of it being about, you know, seeing his heart's true desire, all of a sudden the Mirror of Erised seemed to be used to show us a memory. Now, this isn't a pensive. This also isn't a flashback. This is the Mirror of Erised. It's supposed to show you your heart's true desire. The magic behind it was never explained as something that can show you a past memory. So the fact that it was used to do this, and yes, it's used because plot needs us to understand this blood pact. So visually we're shown the blood pact at this point, and only later are we actually explicitly explained that there is this blood pact between Grindelwald and Dumbledore. But the fact that they used the Mirror of Erised just felt very strange to me. This is not what we as fans expect, because those aren't the rules that were set for how the mirror works. So I found it really weird. The other thing I want to talk about as well then are photos versus portraits. So in traditional Harry Potter, we know that portraits can be imbued with part of the essence, I suppose, of the particular subject matter that's in the portrait. So for example, the headmasters of Hogwarts will often have a portrait of themselves created. This portrait is obviously made magically, so with magic paint or magic process, and we're never clear on that process exactly, but regardless, we know it's a magic portrait. It's created while they're still alive so that they have time to interact with the portrait and give it some more of their personality, so that when the individual in the subject matter in the portrait passes away, this portrait can be hung up for family members or others to still converse with the portrait and get a little essence of the individual. It's never 100% that person. It's not like a ghost. It's not like a remnant of the person 100%, but it has some of the characteristics, which is why so many of the headmasters, or all of the headmasters at Hogwarts, have a portrait, so that then the portrait can be put up in the headmaster's office and give advice to the current headmaster, whoever they may be. That's all great. We understand that from knowing Harry Potter lore. But one part of this film shows us as Nicholas Flamel goes into his safe where, wow, thanks, he also has the Philosopher's Stone. Fan service, yay, I recognize that object. But he also has his book, and he goes to his desk, opens the book, and there's a picture, so a photograph there. And yes, we know that in the magical world of Harry Potter, that photographs can move, because again, you take a picture, but you also then, you know, process the picture using magical substances so that it's a wizard photograph or a magical photograph that can move, versus muggle photographs, which don't move, right? But we've never seen that photography or photographs can act in the same way that portraits can act, that they somehow can interact with you or speak back to you, or much less that a picture, the subject of a picture, of a photo, can go to other photos of themselves or perhaps other portraits of themselves and communicate and talk amongst each other. But that's what it seems to be that they're doing here. So to me, things like this type of retconning as we saw it in the films, feels a little bit like somebody who watched the original Harry Potter films, but maybe didn't read the books, and then was tasked with, I need to incorporate these things into my plot or help use them to move my plot along, but I don't fully understand how they work. So I'm gonna just, you know, change them around a little bit so that they work for me, so that, you know, fans will recognize the Mirror of Erised or will recognize a talking, moving image, but not in the right ways ultimately. So the end result is something that is what we know, but not in the way that we know it. And to me, that unfortunately just fell a little flat. It kind of felt like you're not really helping your cause out when you're not using something as per the established way that it's meant to be. I understand that this gets into the nitty-gritty of fan servicing, of, you know, sticking to the rules, and yes, I get it. You know, JK Rowling, the creators, Warner Brothers, all these people, they can retcon the heck out of the whole thing because it's their baby. They made it. especially JK Rowling. But the problem is in creating certain rules for things and then completely doing away with those rules, you are going to get fan backlash. A key example of this is, in my opinion, the Cursed Child. Here we have the Time Turner. So in the original Harry Potter series, we know how time turners work, because she's established her particular rules in the Wizarding World of time travel. So you go back in time using the time turner, but the acts that you do while you're in the past are merely going to cause the same events that ultimately happened. So you are in effect causing your own past, if that makes sense. So the fact that, you know, Hermione throws the stone, and it's the stone that in the past we know Harry felt something on his head, caused him to look out the window, see that the minister and everybody was coming, and leave Hagrid's hut, that kind of thing. So you are causing your own past, therefore it's all a closed loop, nothing really changes. Then you get into the Cursed Child, and this is why a lot of fans had issues and didn't want the Cursed Child to be part of the official canon, because you've rewritten the way that time turners work. Timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly. Now time turners, you can use it, you can go back to the past, and you can completely change everything. So you can go from having a future where Harry kills Voldemort to a future where, because of actions you did by using the time turner, that is negated. Voldemort survives, Harry Potter is the one that's dead. So again, there are ways to explain these types of things. It's a magical world, all of it is make-believe, so really you can do this, but the fact that you're rewriting a history and a set notion of rules that you yourself have created can cause a lot of confusion. And I think that's one of the key things that happened with the Crimes of Grindelwald, is that throughout this film there's magic and there's elements and there's objects that are used in ways that are not the set about rules that were established for how they're supposed to work, and that's created a bit of, you know, muddying the waters and confusion and some of the gripes that fans have with this film. Something that I personally felt was very strange, particularly in terms of the rules of magic as we understand them so far within the Wizarding World, is the way that the French Diagon Alley is presented to us. Yes, I'm gonna call it the French Diagon Alley, the French Quarter, whatever we want to call it. But essentially, when they go up to that statue, you know, the statue, it's really cool visually. The statue kind of moves its skirt aside, lets the wizards come in, and the wizards go through that, you know, bottom part of the statue, and on the other side they walk onto the same street you first see, but now it's like the wizarding version of that. I thought that was so weird because yes, we've seen that Diagon Alley kind of can exist within London. We've seen that kind of magic before, like 12 Grimmauld Place, that can kind of open up and appear in a space that doesn't really seem to be there. But the idea that the same street almost exists like two dimensions superimposed on each other, there is like the Muggle version of the same exact street, and then in the same space, overlaid, although invisible to each other, is also the wizarding version of the same street. I just thought it was very strange. I just thought, you know, this is a completely new element of magic that we've never seen before. Visually, it's striking. Visually, it's interesting. It also helps you use the same set twice for different purposes. But in terms of the logic of the film, I didn't see that it made much sense, and I had a gripe with that as well. The Blood Pact was a critical element in this film, whereas before watching The Crimes of Grindelwald, most of us thought that the reason that Dumbledore could not move against Grindelwald was because of his love for him. The reason actually ended up being because of this blood pact that they made to one another, not to hurt each other. Now, my problem with this is not the concept of the blood pact or the fact that to a certain extent this being the reason cheapens the thought that it should have been actually love. I think that it should have been just their love for each other, the emotional complexity of that. But getting aside from those personal preferences of how the story should play out, I also just don't understand the logic of when did this blood pact happen? So, hear me out. Dumbledore and Grindelwald are besties. You know, they're talking about taking over the world, you know, muggles move aside, we're gonna make the wizards #1. Okay. Then they kind of have a falling out. They have their major battle where Ariana dies, you know, Albus is there, Grindelwald is there, Aberforth is there. The three of them are battling, duking it out. Ariana dies, like I said, and then major falling out. Obviously, you know, according to the Harry Potter books, none of the three of them know exactly who dealt the blow that killed Ariana, but they all feel guilty, obviously, and they all know they had a part to play. From that moment forward, Grindelwald and Dumbledore fork in the road. Okay, now we are to presume, again, this is basically retconning what's happening here, but we're to presume that at some point this blood pact happened. But did the blood pact happen before? So when Dumbledore and, so Albus Dumbledore and Grindelwald were still really close to each other, and before the battle that murdered Ariana? But if it happened before, when they were presumably at their closest and most likely to not want to harm each other, how did they battle each other and therefore cause Ariana's death? Or did it happen after Ariana's death, in which case they would have already not wanted to see each other or be near each other and were obviously upset that Ariana died, or at least Albus would have been. And we know that, you know, Grindelwald goes away immediately so that he doesn't get, you know, picked up by the authorities. So did they make the blood pact then? It just doesn't make sense. Stylistically, as a concept, this blood pact that's controlling both of them and setting them both into opposite corners, and now is set into the story as something that we need to, you know, get past, almost like the Horcruxes. Like, now we know that in subsequent films, Dumbledore needs to destroy this blood pact so that he can finally have his major battle with Grindelwald, as we know in the stories he has. But the original, when did this happen, is my lurking question of, this makes no sense. When would this have happened? When would this blood pact have been created? And when you really sit down to think about it, there's gaping holes in that. Related to the blood pact as well, I'm wondering, you know, at what point did Newt, or therefore his Niffler, know that the blood pact was important and that we needed to somehow steal this away during that final big speech scene where Grindelwald is talking to all of his followers? Well, you know, at no point, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but at no point did I hear Dumbledore state at all that the blood pact was critical. At no point did we have any inkling that we knew, that Newt knew, that that particular talisman, I mean, we saw it because of the Mirror of Erised, which again showed us a memory. That's not how it works, but okay. We knew that, but, you know, Newt does not know that that is what that necklace is, unless it's a very common design. Everybody knows that that's what a blood pact looks like, in which case then everybody should be trying to get that necklace off of him, including the Ministry of Magic, Mercusa, when they had him in custody. Anyways, let's not get started. But essentially, why did Newt know to get the necklace? Also, why did the Niffler conveniently happen to grab the necklace? He could have grabbed so much other jewelry. There were so many other witches and wizards in that area convened to listen to the speech. It's just another example of convenient plot device, of convenient writing, and it hurts me to say that that is one of the biggest issues with this film, is that the writing just a lot of times felt convenient. It felt like so much was happening, so while you're in the moment, it might sound like logical because you don't have the time for your thought to catch up with the logic of what you're watching, but when you leave the cinema, you take a minute to sit down and think about what you've seen. That's when the gaping holes start to appear and you start to realize that some of this is just too much convenient plot devices, and yeah, it doesn't make much sense, unfortunately. One of the parts that I loved so much about the first film was Jacob and Queenie. I cherish Queenie so much. To me, she is like the Luna Lovegood equivalent within this Fantastic Beasts franchise. in that she's a character that just represents hope and represents light and such a beautiful element that is within all of us. You know, she's this beautiful little golden bubble of love, and I just want to protect her. And then this film happened, and I'm like, who are you? This is not the Queenie that I recognize. And that was one of my biggest gripes with this film as well, in the way that it subverts our expectations, but really just completely flips characters on their heads. You know, they're established as being one way, and then they're just completely rewritten as individuals, which I understand can happen in terms of an arc or a development of a character, but here we see no development. We see no reason, in my opinion, of why Queenie goes from somebody who loves Jacob completely and wants to be with him, so much so that she even bewitches him, to the point where she's gonna go with somebody who is known and you know, proven to be anti-Muggle in order to be with Jacob. The logic there just doesn't make much sense if you really sit down to think about it. So to that point as well, just backing up a little bit, the fact that Queenie bewitches Jacob, okay, I think that that's totally against the character as I personally saw her, but let's go with it. She does this. What is the reason though for her to take him to Newt, another wizard who knows what their relationship dynamic was like, definitely knows what Jacob is like, and therefore would be able to immediately recognize that he's been bewitched, that he's got a love potion? You're gonna get caught, Queenie. So what is your thought process there? And the only logical, as a moviegoer, reason I can see for this is plot. It's really just to get the characters back together so that the movie can move on, and that just cheapens the whole thing, in my opinion. Another thing then, going back to how her character could just flip so easily, is the idea that Queenie ends up with Grindelwald. This doesn't make any sense to me, because Queenie can read minds. So not only do we have the terrible track record that Grindelwald has done terrible things to Muggles, and all the speech, all the hate speech that he spews all the time against Muggles. So track record, the way he talks about Muggles, but then also the fact that she can read minds. She should be able to listen to what Grindelwald is thinking and know that he's not really honest in his opinions about Muggles, or his desire for somebody like Queenie to really end up marrying somebody like Jacob. So these are all reasons why I don't understand the dynamic that they created in this film for Jacob and Queenie, other than for the sole purpose of moving the plot along, and I don't like that. I wish that they really had stuck true to the love story that they were establishing for these two really amazing characters, and yeah, that they had kind of held true to that. Related to Queenie being able to read people's minds, I'm sure I'll get at least one comment saying, well, you know what, maybe she just couldn't understand Grindelwald because, you know, she has a hard time with British type because of their accent, just like she says in the first film. And let's talk about Grindelwald's accent. You know, I was under the impression that he was supposed to be like German or Austrian, you know, from that area of the world. Meanwhile, Johnny Depp is bringing to us his best American-British mashup that I've heard to date. I know that this is typically the accent that he does in films, but I would have hoped that, you know, he could have brought a little bit more to the table with this character and brought a proper representation of the Grindelwald that we should be expecting, at least like a proper, you know, accent from that area of the world. Definitely not British, and definitely not this British American thing where sometimes he's talking like he's American or North American, other times he's got a bit of a British accent in there. The whole thing made no sense to me. So Johnny Depp, what the heck? Like, I guess now you're stuck with it. Like, now this is what we're gonna get, because if you all of a sudden changed your accent, it would just throw us off even further. But please, like, what happened there? And next up, I'm going to talk about like my final section that I want to include in this video, because this is going to be an interesting one to edit. And if you've stuck through so far, then, you know, give me a like so that I know that how many of you have stuck through to this point. But the next section I want to talk about is Lita. So Lita Lestrange, I actually found her to be one of the most interesting introductions in this film. I really enjoyed her. I loved the way that the actress played Lita. And yes, she's a complicated you could definitely say she's an evil character in terms of what she's done in her past, but she's a very, very intriguing character, and I would have loved to see more of her in future films. You know, I would say it definitely showed that she died. I don't know if they're going to leave that up in the air and maybe she got like apparated out. But for the purposes of this current film, I'm gonna say she dead. Like, she seemed like she died, which is sad to me because I would have loved to see more Lita. But I do still have problems with not just Lita herself, but the character, the way it was written, and again, the plot that they used her for. Starting off with, my number one thing with her is, if she's going to tell us the story of her family tree, of her brother, what happened there, why does she need that book? So the book that is kept in the French Ministry of Magic that has her family tree that ultimately Grindelwald's followers steal and they take to the grave where Grindelwald is going to do his speech. Like, it's all super convoluted. See, when I'm describing it, you can hear how convoluted it sounds and how unnecessary it sounds. She could have easily just, like, they could have easily just decided to go to the grave to confront Grindelwald, but before they do this, you know, Lita could have decided to tell her story, to tell the past and what she did to her brother Corvus. But I get it. Visually, you want to have the escape scene where they go into the Ministry of, the French Ministry of Magic, where Lita goes for the book, but already Newt and Tina are there, and we get like all that cool with like the book stacks that are moving. I get it. Visually, it's really cool, but it was so unnecessary. I think that Harry Potter fans, like from the original films, will attest to the fact that the Wizarding World is cool and amazing and magical in and of its own right. You don't need to put in and throw in, you know, all these visual spectacle events that hold no true merit to the story, because the story itself can have those amazing elements if you really just let it flesh itself out. And unfortunately, scenes like that, where they're running through the French Ministry of Magic, just take away from time that could have been spent in fleshing out the story, in giving us some of the explanations, in at least giving us more time with Nagini to understand what is her relationship with Credence, because heck, we don't know what the hell is going on there, to be honest. In giving us more time for even Nicholas Flamel to talk to Jacob and have interesting interactions there. In just giving us more time to know some of these characters, take more time to get us into the scope of where people's heads are at. But no, instead what we have are action set pieces that don't necessarily, in my opinion, belong in the Wizarding World. They belong in an action movie. You know, we already have action enough with these stories just naturally. You don't need to throw in there random things. Like, these films don't need to be random when there's so much lore and magic associated to them. But okay, instead what we get is this random chase so that they can find out that they don't have the book there, so they can go to the grave, because again, the zoo magically takes them there. Okay. And then the book is there. They find the book there. How did she know which grave the book would be on? But okay. They open the book and we get the story. Now, that is another part. The story of what Lita did in her past. This is also convenient writing, really convoluted, like what the heck is happening? So Lita killed her brother, essentially, is what happened. But multiple things here. First of all, it ties in to Credence, so who Credence really is. You know, the idea that Lita was on this ship with the nanny and her brother Corvus. Corvus was crying his eyes out because he's a baby. That's what babies do. And she thinks to herself, you know what? I'm gonna just switch him for another baby. I saw this lady across the hall. She has a baby. Which, why? I mean, that baby's ultimately gonna cry as well. All babies cry. But okay, she does this. So she switches the babies out. Somehow the mother doesn't realize, even though she's sleeping right there. But okay, she takes this other baby, which now we are, by the end of the film, to assume is Credence. So she now takes Credence. Okay. And then the idea is that Corvus, with that other magical, like that other witch that was across the hallway, dies. How does Lita know though that that baby actually dies? Like, I know we as film goers are watching the baby drowning, but presumably this is Lita's interpretation of the night, of the events that happened. But she didn't see the baby drown. She didn't see that other woman. She is on this lifeboat, you know, rowing away. Great. Why wouldn't she think that, hey, this other woman could have been on another life raft and Corvus could be alive somewhere? No, because plot, because we need to know that Lita did something bad and that this baby died and that this is what's been haunting Lita forever and why she thinks she's a bad person. Okay, fine, let's go with it. Okay, now continuing on with this, the idea that this was Credence that she ended up taking, therefore Credence originally belonged to that other lady, that other witch that was across the hallway, who just so happened to be a Dumbledore. What? And even if, okay, even if it ends up being that, you know, Grindelwald's lied and that lady is not a Dumbledore, you know, that Credence is not truly a Dumbledore, or even if, you know, it's that he's not actually a Dumbledore, but what it is that he's infected with the Obscurial. Still, what are the chances that that other family across the hallway, Credence and his mother, are witches, wizards, you know, magical family? Is there like a section of every boat that just houses all the magical people in one area? Just like on Titanic, you know, there were the rich people were like in the nice area and then the poor people were down in the bottom. Like, it just seems so convenient for the sake of them trying to get this emotional gut-wrenching moment of this boat sinking and like, oh, what did Lita do, that all of this happens. So that's why I'm left at the end of watching this film with all of these moments that during the movie you can really say like, wow, that was gut-wrenching, wow, that was visually stunning, but after the fact, when you try to piece things together, it starts to fall flat. You start to see that the logic is not there, that a lot of these things are just convenient plot devices, convenient like things moving along because they want to show you these big set pieces or because they want to throw in this name that they know you'll recognize. And that is essentially, and I think this is a great way to kind of recap this video and end things off, because that is essentially my issue with the film. I think that at its core, it is got a good intention in moving the story along, in making things more intriguing and the mystery developing, but it falls flat in the execution. I think that it pains me so much to say this because I love her, you know, JK Rowling, for any of you Harry Potter fans out there, you know, she could like literally scribble on a piece of paper and you would probably be like, this should have a Pulitzer Prize, like this is amazing. Like, she is incredible. But I think she is an amazing writer of novels and we have come to expect and know and appreciate that of her. But if this movie shows anything to me, at least, it's that she is not, you know, at the same caliber in terms of writing screenplays, where you need a different kind of editing process, you need another kind of, you know, form of execution, because you really need to streamline your thoughts in order to convey a clear message across multiple characters, but not the number of characters, the number of plots and things that are happening. It speaks to what happened also with the Harry Potter books versus the Harry Potter films. So there you have things like Spew, where, you know, we still in the films get to see the essence of Hermione's opinion on, you know, elf rights. We still get Dobby, we still get Creature, we still get an idea of what's going on there. But in the films, we don't have all of the details of Spew, all of that, right? Because we needed to edit that out so that we could tell the concise, true core story of each of the novels. It's not weighed down by this one extra element, just like it's not weighed down by all of the ghosts and their stories, or so many other things that get edited out of the films because we need to ultimately tell a concise, clear story. We can go back to the books and there we have so many pages, you know, thousands and thousands of pages across all of the books to read to our heart's content, a very fleshed out, complete world with lots of characters, with everybody having full story arcs and true development. But in the films, we get the key core elements we need and nothing else. I think that what happened here is that we don't have that division. What we have is a novel, a novel's worth of concepts, of people, of stories, of plots, jammed into one movie that doesn't have any room for breathing and doesn't have any room to give any of the particular elements the real love that they need in order to come across in the way that I'm sure in her mind and JK Rowling's mind they come across. So I don't know, I would just hope that for the subsequent films that a screenwriter comes in to work with JK Rowling so that we can still get her full, you know, novel's worth of story that she wants to convey to us, but we get a screenwriter to edit it out, any of the elements that maybe can be saved for future films or that maybe can be saved for like extras on a DVD or can be, you know, tweaked or shifted around, really made more efficient so you can tell the story in a good, clear way. I also think that we need new directors. I love that with the original Harry Potter series, every couple films we would have new directors coming in so that we could go from, you know, light, beautiful, young, youthful, first discovering Hogwarts, you know, Christopher Columbus days, to really the evolution of like the darkness elements coming in, to then, you know, first love and teenagers and all of that, to then the battle at the very end, like all of that transition that we saw throughout the Harry Potter films. That I think to me is a testament of having different directors and having people come into the world with fresh eyes, with a new take. But what's happening with these films now with the Fantastic Beasts series is that we have the same exact team that has been in the trenches for so long that perhaps they've lost that connection to looking at it from like a distance to see like what is it that we're putting out there, can we work on it, can we improve it, versus just saying it's the same formula, it's always worked before, let's just stick to it. But really, let's take this as a chance. You know, Fantastic Beasts is its own thing. Let's take this as a chance to really work and improve on it. So those are my thoughts on Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. And wow, if you stuck through this whole entire video, then thank you. Thank you so much, because I know it was a long one. I had a lot to talk about. These are just my personal opinions on the film. I'm very curious to know what are your thoughts. So let me know in the comment section. But like I said in the very beginning, let's keep it kind down there and just make sure we're all nice to each other and understand that we're all fans. We all love this world. We are all, you know, one with the Wizarding World, and we want it to do very, very well. At least that's how I know I feel. You know, I had a lot of gripes with this film. I felt really sad walking out of the theater that, you know, it just, in terms of the logistics and just the minutia of filmmaking, that it just missed so many things for me. But my hope in providing feedback and providing my opinions as one of millions of fans is that we really are able to continue to keep the quality up with these films, because I want non-fans to be able to come in, you know, and watch these and understand what's going on. And I want other fans like myself to go in and not feel like everything is just being retconned. You know, what was the point of knowing and loving Harry Potter and you're coming in and everything's just changed and like up in the air again. I want all of us to be able to love this franchise for years and years to come. So that's kind of why I wanted to put this video together. I don't want it to come across as negative or like anything like that. It really just is my opinions, my feelings, and my hope. It's all about hope for the future Fantastic Beasts. I'm very excited to see what is going to happen. You can tell from these two films so far that there is a whole world, you know, 5 films so far that we know are going to happen, but there's a whole world that JK Rowling is unveiling for us, and my hope and dream is that it continues to do so, but in more of a clear way, so that we can really love these characters for years and years to come. And basically, guys, I just want more Newt and Tina and Jacob and Queenie. And yes, I love that Grindelwald is our antagonist, and I think he's interesting, and I'm really curious because I want that ending with Grindelwald and Dumbledore. But can you get more of the characters I love and the heart of the story? And I don't know. I'm gonna end it there because yeah, the ranting is just gonna continue. I'm gonna go finish off my tea. I'm gonna start to edit this video, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Make sure to hit that like button to let me know that you stuck through to the end, and subscribe to my channel for more videos. Again, it's all love and Harry Potter on my channel, so hope to see you in the next one. And as always, love and Lumos. Bye.